Do it.
Cool, so we're recording, so we're ready. And today I got with me Amanda Vogel. Amanda is one of our amazing speakers. Hi, Amanda, at NorCal Fitness Summit 2017. And I wanted to kind of kick things off first with having Amanda introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself. So Amanda, take it away.
Sure. Hey, hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here to talk about fitness writing, a little bit about what I know in that area. So a little bit about me. I've been working in the fitness industry probably for about 20 years, long time. I started as a fitness instructor, and I kind of worked my way into doing all kinds of different things, being a manager, working in the weight room. But one of the things that really stuck for me was fitness writing. And I started many years ago writing for magazines. Mostly, that's kind of where I got my beginning with fitness writing. And most recently, I still write for magazines, but I've branched out a little bit. I write a lot for online publications now, websites, and most definitely blogs. That's kind of one of my main focuses. In addition to that, I am a social media consultant in the fitness industry. So I combine my days doing either teaching fitness classes, doing social media consulting, or doing writing, or presenting, speaking with people like you.
You're many talents, many talents. So what got you into fitness writing? I know that's something a lot of fitness pros just eventually want to get into or have thought about. What kind of made you decide to kind of go in that direction?
You know, it all started because I was just completing a master's degree in human kinetics. And the topic of my research was body image and the role of the fitness instructor. And so I finished this research. I thought it would be really interesting information for people in the fitness industry to know about. But I was thinking, how do I share that with them? And I thought articles would be the best way to do it. So went to the library and got a bunch of books out about how to become a freelance writer. And it all kind of started from there. That's how I got into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you, what do you think? For a lot of like the fitness pros that are listening to this, what do you think kind of is that first step for them to get into that world and start writing and start getting published?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So sort of two first steps, I guess. Step one, step two. First step is to figure out where, not only the topics that you want to write for, but where you would want to begin writing, whether it's on a blog or a website or a community magazine or even a larger type magazine. And once you kind of narrow down that, then it allows you at least a starting place. You can go and start doing research. Okay, this is the publication, or these are the group of publications I want to write for. I want to start doing some research so that I can figure out what kinds of articles do they run, how often do they publish, what's the audience. That's a huge, huge thing to really nail down and make sure you understand what the audience is of different publications, and then figure out how your ideas and the topics you have in mind would fit into those types of publications. So that's step one. And then step two is really knowing how you approach editors at these publications with your story ideas, because there's a very specific way to do it. And the more you sort of stick with the standard way of pitching your story ideas, the more likely you're going to come across as a professional to that editor, and the more likely he or she is going to look at your ideas and consider you for a writer.
So the editor is ideally kind of like the gatekeeper to getting published. So what are some like tactics, or what are they looking for to get that says, okay, this person can get published, this person needs to go back to the drawing board?
You know what? Surprisingly, there's actually a little bit of both, no matter what. Like even the most professional writers have to go back to the drawing board sometimes. Unfortunately, not all story ideas work for various publications for real different reasons. Some might be just doesn't fit the publication, and it could actually be a great story idea, but just not the right time for that publication, or the editor isn't sure if it would fit at that particular time. Okay. So what differentiates, though, between something that looks a little bit more professional and go back to the drawing board is really this standard approach that you use for pitching story ideas, which I'm going to talk all about at the NorCal Fitness Summit. But essentially, it is sending a really specifically formatted email that's called a query to editors at magazines, blogs, and websites that lays out your story idea with just enough detail so that the editor knows what it is you want to write about, but not too much so that you end up writing the entire piece right there and then in the pitch. So that's kind of one main component of what the query is. And then there's others as well, like letting the editor know why specifically you are the best person to be writing that piece, and a few other things.
Okay. So what you mentioned earlier, kind of one of the first is looking at like which audiences typically like read which magazines. So what have you found in your career? Like what audiences will read like a Muscle and Fitness or something like an Idea magazine? Like who would you have to kind of cater it to for someone to be like, wow, this was a really good article?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good question. So for me, a lot of my specialization early on in my fitness writing was women's health and fitness. So that was the audience that I went after most often in like Shape Magazine, Self, Women's Health, that kind of thing, is women probably between the ages of about 25 and early 40s, somebody who is anywhere along the lines of a beginner exerciser to somebody who is pretty active in their daily lifestyle. And just, so for me, that was an audience that I wrote for quite frequently. So the voice that I would use in those magazines would be very different than the voice I'd use in Muscle and Fitness, which is for a completely different audience of men, maybe looking for different things when they're going to the gym in terms of the results they get. And then Idea Fitness Journal, that would be strictly fitness professionals. So other people that I actually work with, other personal trainers, other fitness instructors. And so the kind of story that I would put together for Idea Fitness Journal would be very different from the kind of story I put together for Women's Health, because Women's Health would be talking to people who are essentially our clients and might not know a lot about health and fitness, or they know a little bit, but you can kind of dig a little bit deeper and give them information they don't know, versus Idea Fitness Journal is it's a trade journal for people in our industry. So that the direction, the perspective, the angle would be completely different, even if you're writing on a similar topic.
Okay. So ideally it's figuring out the magazine you want to write for, and then who's that audience, and then figure out how to get some sort of content in front of that editor so they can get a little snippet of what it is that you want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what have you found ideally, like when a fitness pro wants to write, like what are some sticking points when it comes to their writing that you've kind of seen they have a hard time with or some challenges with?
Writing short.
Okay.
So it's actually easy to write a whole lot of words, because you don't have to have a true sense of organization if you just start writing and whatever kind of comes out of your brain. But in order to write something that's rather concise, which is how you would need to do it when you're pitching a story idea to an editor, you've got to really have thought out the technique in advance. You have to think about, okay, what exactly is it that I want to say? You organize your thoughts, and then you might even write it out and it would be longer than you want, and then you go back and edit yourself. So two things kind of coming out of that piece of advice. One is to really organize your thoughts, figure out what it is that you want to say before you get to the point where you actually send the email to the editor. And two, go back and edit yourself. So that can be painful sometimes, because maybe you write something you really like, you like how you wrote it, but realize it doesn't fit, or it just, there's too much of that kind of thing and it makes the content too long. So being able to go back and cut words that you've written, even if you think they're important, they might not necessarily be needed.
Is there like a certain amount of words, or like a total of words? You mentioned short. Is that 500 words, 600 words? What does short look like?
So I guess it depends a little bit on the depth of the article that you are suggesting. So like a longer article that would be more of a feature article with research in it and lots of detail, you might need to write a little bit longer in order to explain what you want to do. But a short blog post that's 500 words, a few sentences can pretty much sum that up. So that's sort of one consideration. The other consideration is to remember that this is an email that you're sending to an editor with your story pitch. And so if we all think about our own behavior when it comes to email, how long of an email do you want to read from someone that you've never met or heard from before, right? And when you open an email and there's this much text, okay. And you might come back to it, you think, oh, I'll come back to it later, I'm busy right now, and then you forget because it goes down your inbox and you've forgotten about it. So I would say the first part of your query should be like a paragraph long, and then you'll have some additional information underneath it. And if the editor is truly interested after they read that first paragraph, they'll keep reading after that. But try to keep it as concise as possible, just like you would any type of business email.
Okay. Good, some good information there. So you mentioned blogs, websites, fitness magazines. Now, is there one better than the other that you should write for? Should you write, like when you're starting out, should you write for all three? Like, how do you determine which one to first start with?
A lot of it will depend on your goals. So, for example, if your goal is to create a platform for yourself in your community, you want people to know you as the go-to trainer in the city or the town that you live in, you might find that a community newspaper, not newspaper, more of a community magazine or even a website would be exactly the publication for that goal. If your goal is to reach more of a national or even international audience and create more of a platform for yourself that's a little bit bigger, because it might be a publication that a lot of people have heard of, then you're going to want to look for either the national magazines, the kind that you see in the supermarkets or, in a bookstore, or even a website that is nationally read. Blogs tend to be really, really good for helping you earn a little extra money for your writing, help you practice your writing, and also to help you kind of get a foot in the door with your writing, because quite often, not always, but quite often blogs are a little bit easier to break into than other types of publications. So the hardest types of publications to break into would be these big magazines, Muscle and Fitness, Women's Health, all that kind of stuff. You could be spending some time sending pitches before, if at all, you break into those magazines, whereas it can be more encouraging and help you kind of get on your way quicker to apply to write for some of these blogs and websites that don't have the high level of competition.
Now, is there like a certain way to approach, like say you want to write for another blog, is there a way to go about that? Or is it more important maybe to start off with your blog first and then venture off and ask to be on like a guest on someone else's blog?
Again, it totally depends on your goals. So if your goal is truly to have a blog that you drive people to, it's a reason to drive people to a blog or your website, then absolutely. If you're thinking, you know what, I don't have a true interest in having a blog, but I love the idea of making connections and helping support and create partnerships with people who own other blogs, right? Then that might be the way to go. So it really just depends on what you feel you're most passionate about and what is in line with your goals.
Okay. So once you start writing, should you write for free? Like, should you get paid for writing? Is that, how does that whole process come about?
Well, again, I hate to say goals, but okay. So my true answer to that is always get paid for your writing, because it's what you do. It's part of how you're contributing as a professional. It's a skill that you're providing. It's an expertise that you're providing. So if one of your goals is to create a direct revenue stream out of writing, then absolutely you would want to expect payment for your writing. Now, having said that, some fitness professionals will find it very lucrative indirectly to contribute to a blog or a community magazine or a website where they might not be getting paid, but they're certainly building awareness about what they do in the fitness industry, and they're building an audience that way, which might come back to them indirectly through clients. So you've got to weigh the pros and cons of this. I have quite often fitness professionals will come to me after I do a session on fitness writing, and they'll say, look, I've been writing for this website or this magazine for a long time. I've contributed a lot of articles, and I'm still writing for free, even though I've proven myself, but it's never gotten to the point where they're starting to pay me. And my advice to that is always, well, okay, then why continue? You've already gotten the byline. That means your author credit, your article in a particular publication. So do you need to continue to write for that publication, or have you gotten what you need out of it? You can move on to another publication that will pay you. So you've got to kind of weigh that against your personal goals. But if you want my one piece of advice, it's to try to get paid as much as possible. You're professional.
So who sets that price though? Is it the editor, or is it that magazine that sets the price, or is it me, the person writing the article that sets my price? Yeah.
So occasionally a publication will ask you, what's your fee? Which I always hate, because it's like, well, I don't know what their budget is before I say what my fee is. But most often a publication will say to you, this is what we pay. Now there is wiggle room. There's room to say, oh, well, that's great, but my fee is actually this. Can you come up to X number of dollars instead? So there is opportunity to negotiate, but most of the time as a standard, it's the publication that will tell you what they pay.
Okay.
If they don't bring up pay, they're not planning to pay you. So then it's up to you to bring that up.
Now, is there like an app? Is there a certain price that typical publications pay, or is that depending on the article or who's writing that article that determines that price? Like, how does the publication determine what to pay you?
Yeah, so it's based on their budget. It's also based on, I think, who the writer is, their level of expertise, and whether maybe even they've written for the publication before. So it's a lot of different variables.
So when you're looking at ideally trying to get in contact with an editor, so we figured out, okay, you need a short email, some content, but nothing long. But you want to but how do I get in contact with these editors? With the rise of social media and the ability to connect with so many people on social media, do you recommend social media being a way to get in contact with these editors?
Right. So here's what I recommend social media for. It's a good way to break the ice with editors. So actually allow the opportunity for them to maybe become familiar with you, to create some interaction between you and them, to see what they're working on, to see the kinds of things, the kinds of topics maybe that interest them, because it could help inform the story pitches that you send. So it's a good icebreaker. It's a good way to get connected with an editor. Absolutely. And I suggest, all the, maybe not Facebook, but, Twitter, Instagram, if their account is open, LinkedIn, definitely.
Okay.
But then from it, that's only the icebreaker phase. And then if you want to send them a professional query, a pitch letter, then you do that by email.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is that? So what's a really good icebreaker that you've done or you've seen to get that editor to kind of open up that initial conversation?
Right. So it could be anything from just replying to a tweet, liking an Instagram post, and commenting on it as genuinely as you can, obviously. Try to pick things that would truly be of interest to you and create that connection there just to get on their radar. You can also do things like, I remember once so on Twitter, you can create lists of various types of people that you want to check in on without having to search for them. You just find them in the list. So I created a list a few years ago that was cool health and fitness editors. And I remember I put like a whole bunch of different editors in there. And one of them happened to be the web editor for Self magazine at the time. So she got a notification saying that I put her in this list of cool health and fitness editors. And I got from her the next day a message saying, hey, thanks for putting me in that list. Are you interested in writing for this particular section of the website? So it's, there's all kinds of different ways to get on an editor's radar. And again, try to keep it as genuine as possible. You're not trying to do it just so that they pay attention to you. But as we all know, social media is a pretty amazing way to network with people who you've never met before and get to know people and start to create those connections that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily be able to have.
So ideally, it's just being genuine, being authentic. Don't reach out with the intent to pitch something, but just kind of chat with them, have a conversation with them, and then at some point introduce yourself as a fitness expert and how you can contribute to their magazine.
Yeah, through a query letter that you would send them by email. Yeah.
Okay. So do you feel like and then one of the questions we got is now with the rise of technology and so many advances in technology, do you feel like someone who wants to write, a fitness expert who wants to be a writer, does they need a PR rep now to help them with how to get on all these different platforms and how to become more aware of themselves?
Yeah, not at all. Nope. No PR person. So that'll save you time and money. No, you know what? It's really just comes down to understanding the proper technique. I mean, look, you could have a PR person if you really wanted to take this big, but the PR person is really more for those who want publicity in certain areas. So they want to be held up as the expert in an area and not necessarily the person who's creating the story and writing it. But if your true interest is in writing, no PR person, that's not really the standard. Like most editors expect to deal directly with the writer. And as long as you're following kind of standard protocol, there's really no reason to have a PR person for the the goal of writing.
Okay. What do you think, what about for the goal of writing, if for your like local, so obviously we're talking big magazines, right? Women's Health, Men's Health, Men's Fitness. What about like more of a local community magazine? Like how do you go about being one of the, like the expert, maybe getting a column? How do you go about doing that?
Exactly the same way, that's the thing, whether it is for a small community news magazine. I'm trying to stay away from the word newspaper because there's too much anymore. More websites, like whether it's a local website or a local magazine or a major magazine that's read nationally or internationally, the approach is actually the same. The main difference is truly the level of competition, the standards. Sometimes, I don't want to knock local community magazines, but the competition isn't as strong and the pay isn't as strong. So that's the other difference between them, is often the higher paying magazines obviously are the more competitive ones, and they expect more from you sometimes than lower paying magazines.
Now, do you notice a certain type of article is more requested? Is it like more like weight loss, fat loss? Like, have you noticed in your career, like magazines requesting a certain topic?
Yeah, well, I mean, weight loss is always up there, and it's for the women's magazines, absolutely. So, I think the kind of the cool thing about having a specialization in health and fitness is that it never kind of goes out of style. People are always interested to know, how do I do something with regards to health or fitness better? How do I stick with it? How do I stay motivated? How do I reach my goals? So there's always opportunity to write about health and fitness. I don't think that there's ever going to be a time when editors say, no, we've had enough of the health and fitness topics. No. and so because of that, anything that you sort of see as a major trend in fitness is something probably that would be popular in a publication as well. So like you mentioned, the weight loss, for guys, often, building muscle and that kind of thing. And then truly just for a lot of publications, how do you just make activity part of your everyday? So even if you're not getting to the gym, how do you just work it into your normal lifestyle? That's a huge topic as well.
Okay. Now, what about, so with getting public, obviously there's all these different publication websites where you can publish, like a Medium where you can publish an article or publish your articles. Are there others that you recommend where someone like myself can write an article, or any fitness pro can write an article and just automatically get it published on one of these sites? Like, is there ones that you recommend?
Yeah, so there are those content-driven sites. I have completely fallen out of touch with a lot of them, so I don't know that I have any to recommend, simply because my main focus is always to figure out how to get fitness professionals paid for their writing for the most part. So a lot of these content-driven sites, it's for a different purpose, right? But it isn't to be paid for the writing. So I'm sorry, I cannot recommend specific ones at this time.
Okay. What would you think? So someone new starting out, I want to write, I don't know where to go. I'm not ready to reach out to editors yet. What would be kind of like the first couple steps that I should start focusing on, or should be focusing on, to eventually get ready to move down in that direction?
Yeah. Okay. So if you do have an interest in writing, one of them might be to work on your own blog if you have one, because editors will often want to see examples of your writing before they hire you. So if you have, even if it's your own blog, that's a start. That's a way to show editors what you've been doing, and then they can truly see what your writing style, voice, and expertise is, or your skills. And then the other thing is something I started with at the beginning of this call, which is to just start doing your research. So slowly look at what are the publications and websites that I would like to write for, and start reading them. I know that sounds like simple advice, to look at the magazines you want to pitch, but a lot of people actually don't do it. And just as an example, right before we got on this call, I've got a health and fitness blog that reviews health and fitness products. That's what I do. And I just got a pitch for my blog from someone who wanted me to review wax that you put on cars and trucks. So obviously this guy sent the pitch to me without ever looking at my blog. So he doesn't know that I'm not writing about cars and trucks and the accessories that you might use for them. Again, it sounds like such simple advice, but you will stand out just by showing that when you do approach an editor with a story idea, that you've looked at the publication, you've read it, you have a good sense of what they've done lately, and you have a good sense of who the audience is. So doing your research would be another first step.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you would want to add, you know, that maybe like one last takeaway, that one big takeaway that you think like any fitness pro should know about when it comes to blogging, website writing, fitness writing for magazines?
Yeah, sure. You will get rejections. So don't let that discourage you. It's just part of writing. Everybody, even the most successful freelance writers, get editors either not responding to them. And in my talk at your summit, I'll explain a little bit about how to make sure editors do respond back to you. But also, just don't get discouraged. You will get rejections, and that's okay. Actually, rejection is sometimes a sign that you're doing something right, and that all you need to do is kind of tweak your message and try again at a different publication. So persevere is my last piece.
I love it. Now, so here's a follow-up to that. I know I said I lied. It wasn't the last one. Here's a follow-up to that one. Do editors tell you, like when they say no, do they tell you like, hey, here's why? Or is it one that you kind of got to figure out on your own? Like, do they give you some points of like, do this or do this?
Sometimes, sometimes not.
Okay.
So they sometimes will tell you, like a good rejection is when they say, we like this idea, but we're actually working on something similar right now. So then you go, oh, okay, this is a good sign. That means that I'm on track. That means the timing was just not right for me for this particular story of this publication, but you're on track with the idea. Most of the time they don't.
Okay. Okay. So you just kind of got to figure it out, ideally on your own, try to figure out where where some changes need to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, hey, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So thank you for hopping on with me today. And we definitely look forward to seeing you this October at the NorCal Fitness Summit.
I'm totally looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Me too. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Awesome.